Welcome back to the Unknown Angler. Today we're going to try a redfish crack fly. One hook and 140 denier thread. This is just a standard hook with a kind of a limbrick bend on it. Just going to tie in a pair of double pupil orange eyes on the front here. You can tie any lead eyes on here. The double pupils are, well, they're just new out and I had some around, so I used them. Just add a little bit of super glue on the back side of this. That's going to keep those in place, keep them from spinning around the shank a lot. And while you're waiting for that to dry, you can just take your thread and advance it all the way to the bend of the hook and down around the bend. After this, we're going to tie in some crystal chenille. That stuff is UV gel core chenille. I'm not sure where I picked that up, but basically it's medium estaz or crystal chenille in orange. Works great. Orange or pink, either one of those two. You could even probably use chartreuse. It'd be fine. In this case, I'm tying with kind of the traditional colors they tie this fly with, which is a tanned brownish fly with an orange. This is supposed to be an egg sac. Really what it does is it actually holds up the craft or tail you're about to tie in. So it serves as a dual purpose, as a hot spot for the fly, and also to keep the craft or tail from fouling. You can clean this up a little bit with thread, but don't overdo it. Just kind of cover some stuff up. You're about to cover this whole area up with a lot more thread and a lot more materials anyway, so don't build a big bulky area behind that just because you want to try to tie it in. And you just saw me separate all the bottoms out of the craft fur. By the way, you saw me hold up a patch of craft fur. That's a 2-inch patch. It's roughly 1.5 to 2 inches depending on how large the piece of craft fur is that I buy. I like to divide it up into even sections. I cut it up. That makes it very easy for me to keep consistency whenever I'm tying one of these tails in. I know exactly how much craft fur I'm using. I believe the exact measurements of that patch are like 1.6 inches for the hairline craft fur. They're a little, their patches aren't quite 10 inches, or like 9 inches something, and I divide it up into 9 patches so I can get 9 flies out of a patch. Hopefully that made sense. Anyway, once you get the tail in, just come in here with a nice brown marker and I make 4 bars. The tighter you pull on the tail, the thinner and smaller the bars will be. As you pull on the tail, it pulls all the fibers together and it's easier to get a marker in there. And then we're going to tie in some hot tip silly legs. Any silly legs will do. You don't need to use the hot tips. I like the orange on these. That's why I'm using them. You want the legs to extend about 1.5 inches. I am going to use a 2-inch brush to finish this fly off. So basically tie in the legs on one side and then fold them over and tie them in on the other side. You'll have a little excess on the top there, that little loop. You can cut that off. And then you're going to trim up the legs to length once you're done with that. Once again, don't overdo the trying to clean up that whole mess there underneath the silly legs. Don't worry about the gaps or anything in your thread. Basically, if you put too much thread in there, you're going to build up a bunch of bulk in the back of this spine. You really don't want to do that. And now, just because I want to be really overly excessive on this fly. Why do when you can overdo? I'm going to actually add some crustacean eyes to it. These are EP crustacean eyes. You can make your own. I've made my own from time to time. You know, making your own is fine. It's not a lot of fun. And if you can find these crustacean eyes, go ahead and buy them. Save you a little time. Cost you a little bit more money, but I'm all for making everything you can, but you don't save a lot of money in the end. Anyway, make sure you get a little thread behind the eyes so they stick out at probably about a 30-degree angle off the back of the fly there. And now I'm going to add some mirror wrap to this. This mirror wrap adds some flash underneath the fly so we don't get an overly flashy fly from the side or from the front. But from the rear end, you're going to see that the flash really kind of really comes into its own on the back side of the fly. Remember, most of the fish are going to see this fly coming at it from the back side. So at the end, I'm going to take the fly off. I'm going to rotate it around a little bit, and I'm going to show you what it looks like from a bunch of different angles. It really changes very dynamically as you look at the different angles of this fly. Quite a nice fly. Now I'm about to tie in a craft fur brush. Now this one I actually made. When you have a craft fur brush maker, or actually this is an EP brush, I shouldn't say craft fur brush. This is an EP brush. It's all EP fibers with a little flash in it. It is a 2-inch brush. You can buy 2-inch brushes. I would highly advise you, if you don't have a brush maker, you really don't have a choice. You're going to have to buy a brush. But 2-inch brushes should be relatively easy to find. This one is a mixture of brown and tanned, so that I would get a very nice kind of mottled effect on the fly itself. And then tie in at the underneath the eyes on the base of the hook. The reason is we are going to, like I said in the beginning, we're going to add a weed guard to this, a little bit of the 30-pound test weed guard, and you're going to need a little bit of area to tie that in. And if you tie on the base of the hook and you push the residual EP fibers back like that, it kind of covers up underneath the eyes. Now the reason I did that quick 2-turn whip finish there is because you're going to pick this out with a bodkin. You have to pick it out like mad before you start doing any gluing around the front of the eye, and before you even tie the tie the weed guard in. And you know, the fly looks like complete garbage until you actually start picking it out, and then it starts getting nicer faster. You really need to do a lot of picking out when you use any of the craft fur brushes. It doesn't show it real well, but the other thing here is it's going to be a lot of fibers, stray fibers. Using a lighter to burn those fibers off and trying not to have to cut them really helps in the end when you're laying some epoxy, the UV epoxy on the eye of the fly. It doesn't have a little barbs of EP fibers sticking out. A little more picking. Going to grab some 30-pound test. You can use smaller weed guards, less than 30-pound, on smaller hooks, but this is a size 1. This is just below a 1/0. It's a pretty decent hook gap, and I like to use pretty heavy mono on there. This is Mason hard mono, as you saw that I was holding it up. It's the only, I haven't found anything basically that's stiffer than Mason hard mono. If anybody wants to write in the comments below about a harder mono, I'd really like to find one, but this is the stiffest stuff I can find. It's great stuff. And 6-turn whip finish. just to finish everything off. Basically, comb back the fibers so you can see where the point of the hook is. And then you can just cut that off just above the point of the hook. And then I take a pair of pliers and I smush down the front end and just try to bend it back just a little bit, so you have a little bit of an angle going back. Anyway, that's pretty much it. You add a little UV, dash it with the light, and you're all done. Now this fly, I have to say, if you left the rubber legs off of it and you left those crustacean eyes off of it, would probably fish no different than it does with the legs or with the crustacean eyes. But now you can see that hot spot and what it looks like from the back. And that's probably more of the view that the fish will see of it. And they'll see if that side view there. But it's a beautiful shrimpy looking fly that will catch a snook, reds, and sea trout, specks. It's a great little fly. See you next time.